What's up, friendly neighborhood nerds? Thank you for watching our video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell.
Hello, friendly neighborhood nerds. I'm Robo Strange here with Respawn. And today, on our second ever episode of The Kick Boost, we're talking with indie publisher Matthew Werner at the helm for We Are Legion, a superhero imprint for MW Entertainment Industries. Welcome, Matthew. Welcome to the show.
Hi there, everyone.
So tell us a little bit about MW Entertainment. So you got a couple imprints underneath it, right? So tell us about that whole bit.
Yeah, so we've got a few imprints. So far, our sci-fi imprint, Jettison Zone, we had a successful Kickstarter to do a physical print run of the Odyssey Initiation #1. The digital issue of that came out last year, and now we're kind of moving over to We Are Legion as like our big thing.
Okay.
How do people get that digital issue? Can they buy it anywhere, or?
It's on Comixology, Drive-Thru Comics, Comic House.
Great.
Okay, awesome.
I would recommend it.
We'll definitely put those links in the description below.
For people that don't know, it reminded me a whole lot of Mass Effect. Like it's beautifully designed and written, and it feels like really massive world, sci-fi world. So yeah, I'd recommend it. It's really fun.
Funny thing, the original character designer for the series, Phil Cho, when George was commissioning stuff for him to do, he was also getting like these commissions for like fan art.
Oh.
And some of them were like Assassin's Creed, Mass Effect mashups.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
And Mass Effect was a huge inspiration for him.
That's so
in
cool.
terms of, like the Odyssey, also Star Trek. He's a big Trekkie, and Star Wars.
That's so cool. I can definitely see that coming through. Like, there's so many. You just get that same vibe of like, this is a really cool, epic, space opera type thing that I'm going to go on. It's really fun. So Matthew, before we started recording, we were talking about what's been in the news this week in terms of DC. What are your thoughts about what's happened at DC this week? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, so I have been keeping abreast of that, because even though I'm never going to go over to the DC side of the industry, I'm just way too much of like a loudmouth for DC to ever hire me. But I mean, even if I did, it would be probably like a Rob Kirkman at Marvel type of thing, where I would just immediately get booted out. But even so, I do keep up on it, because it's just like, geez, like
it's huge, right?
For
company.
everything.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen? Like, do you have any theories on how they're going to reconsolidate?
Yeah, it's probably gonna be moving away from the whole rumored 5G stuff and towards a more kind of streamlined thing, where it's like, because that's what we've already been seeing. They were gonna be doing the DC Zoom and Ink thing, and then they were gonna be doing that Jeff Johns imprint that everyone forgot about, that Slaughterhouse thing, or Slaughter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, all of that stuff's probably all of the pop-up imprints are probably gonna be just like Thanos snapped from existence.
Yeah, right.
Oh man, it's so sad.
It's probably gonna be Black Label, and they got rid of Vertigo, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's probably gonna be like, it's just gonna be stuck down to DC Black Label, and they may get rid of Black Label too, because that's basically just becoming a Vertigo.
Sure.
Yeah.
Too.
It's interesting. I want to know your perspective, because you've been doing this for 4 years, you said. Like, how do you think the comic industry needs to evolve to stay alive, like to stay relevant and thriving? What direction does it need to go in?
I am a big believer in more kind of democratizing how people can read things. I'm a big believer in the whole webcomics scene, in terms of like line webtoon to pass, what used to be stuff like Smack Jeeves and all that.
Right.
I think those are much more popular in terms of readership, and they can get into more different demographics. You look at something like Line Webtoon, the gender split on that is like pretty much 50-50 last time I saw, which is not the case with Marvel or DC
Yeah.
of any
Nice.
title.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that.
That's the goal, right? 50-50, right? To get everybody who wants
Yeah.
to be in there, yeah.
Yeah, and also the readership for Line Webtoon and all that, it's a lot of, horny teenagers.
Right.
Yep.
Which again, like Marvel and DC, not really young people reading that as much, obviously.
That's right.
My
Old people like
generation-
me.
Yeah,
That's it.
I'm only 21, so
You're a
you know.
baby.
it's like it's my generation I'm talking about.
That's right.
But I'm very cognizant of the fact that not many people my age are reading comics.
No, that's actually a really good point. You have a lot of that. That's the conversation that seems to come up a lot. Is you have older, like I don't know, old millennial, young Gen Xer that I have read comics back in the early '90s, and it seems like most of Marvel and DC is written for people in their 30s, people who want the older, grittier stuff. But there are the Gen Z, and if you just keep catering to us, and even though I'd be biased and I want books written for me, if you only write for me, then the community is going to die in general. And so that's pretty awesome that you're looking at how do you appeal to Gen Z and keep the comic books going forever, right? So that makes sense, yeah.
And I don't think that moving over to like the Line Webtoon to Pass style of distribution is necessarily going to be bad for older fans or local comic stores, because right now, especially with the pandemic, you have a lot of people not really reading as many comics, even if they were already having pull lists and everything, because if you're furloughed and all that, and you're not really getting much income, justifying buying comics is not really a thing. Whereas if you can just be like, oh, well, I've already got like a free subscription to Comic House, and it may not be Comic House that does the whole Netflix style thing and does it successfully. I personally like Comic House. They have lots of very good, deals for creators, but someone's gonna crack that, the whole Spotify style free, but there's also a paid subscriber thing, which is a lot more easy for people to digest than, oh yeah, buy $4 issues or like $20 graphic novels every month. Oh yeah, you're buying like a whole bunch of these and the trade paperbacks.
Yeah. It's fascinating, hey, because even our discussion page, we have the same problem in terms of demographics. We're about 80% men, and it's just so I'm a woman that identifies as a woman, and I still struggle talking to these boys about like how do we make this comic content appeal to various types of people, because it is really like same as everything in the entertainment media industry. It's heavily cishet male influenced, which is actually leads me to a question I wanted to ask about your website. So your website, you've got a blog where you talk about Pride Month and how companies are basically piggybacking on Pride Month these days, which is completely true. But it appears to me as though you've got a commitment to that community. So I'm wondering, like, do you have goals for queer representation in your comics? Is that something you think about? Yep. How does that work?
Our main, flagship superhero, his color scheme is the asexual pride flag.
Oh, sweet.
Awesome.
That's cool.
Awesome.
It's the, black, silver, and purple. Same thing as black, gray and purple.
So does that mean does that automatically? It's maybe a stupid question, but does that mean that character will be asexual?
He's asexual and aromantic.
Nice.
So,
all right, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I wanted to make sure there were lots of aromantic characters because I'm personally aromantic.
Okay, cool.
Good.
And I wanted to make sure that, okay, even if I'm not like personally part of one group, that everyone can kind of have something that they can read and be like, okay, these people actually give a shit about,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
like showing up. And in terms of like, because you did mention gender splits and all that, even though most of our creators are guys, obviously, we do have our editorial board is pretty much, it's actually more towards women and non-binary creators.
Nice.
Like, we actually have more women and non-binary creators, non-men, than we do, guys. So
That's awesome.
I wanted to make sure that, hey, we're not just having these people in and then they're not doing anything with us. Not just sidelining them, kind of like certain big two publishers who will bring like creators and then
who are you talking about? I have no clue. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
No, there's no one who's like gone to a certain workshop thing and only done like a few Blue Beetle issues and then nothing.
Right.
And then it was like, wow, you guys were really interested in working with me.
Yeah. Wow. Jeez. Yeah. So that's pretty awesome. Going back to that Pride blog entry that you guys have on your site, there was so you guys are really just all in. Like, it's not gonna just be like, hey, we have a gay character, and then come like us, and then you go do your own thing. Like you guys talk about, like, this is really part and parcel to the world that you're in. Is normalizing the kind of content and having content for everybody in there. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. It's not something where it's like, oh, we just want to cynically, appeal to a certain demographic, and then we don't actually, support any of the movements or anything like that, like boosting.
Within that. Yep.
Yeah. Because a lot of our creators are also, members of the LGBTQ community. Besides me, we've got people who are from across the, spectrum. Obviously, we don't have everyone because
Sure.
there are so many identities.
Sure.
And we're such a small studio at this point, even though we've been at it for a few years.
That's pretty
What's your
pretty awesome.
Count out at the moment. Like, how many people do you think are in there at the moment?
If you look at our wiki, we do have like a full list of queer
Creators
legion
and stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
I'll provide a link for when people want to go into the description.
Yeah.
But we've got over 100 people in there at this point.
Exciting. Yeah.
So
Cool.
writers, artists, and everything.
So you got a full gambit of creators. You talked about an editorial board earlier. Now, so sometimes I'm a little slow, but I think I just made this connection maybe about 20 minutes before this interview. But the MW in NW Entertainment Industries is Matt Werner, right?
Yeah. Basically, we were just like, and we were hesitant about it back in the day, 2016 when we were deciding on that name. Mm-hmm. And my argument was just, it's good for a logo.
Yeah, the MW, and you get the inverse. But are you like the top dog? Are you heading this whole thing up?
So personally, I see MW as being a very flat, thing.
Sure.
But with We Are Legion, I'm putting a lot of my own money into it. So I'm like, okay, obviously I'm going to have a big say in what's going on.
Sure.
With creative teams and everything.
Right.
But other people can still be like, hey, I want to fund my own comic with my own character or something like that.
Yeah.
And we're very supportive of that. I'll help out with other people's creations, getting that off the ground, but not doing it in a way where I'm taking ownership or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or yeah, we're a creator ownership studio to the bone,
Yeah.
I have no interest in ever taking someone's creation from them and being like, aha, we're
Gotcha.
gonna sell this to Hollywood.
Cough, cough, Watchmen, cough. So when we're looking at We Are Legion, what role do you think? What role do you hope or do you feel We Are Legion will play in the comic book environment today?
So basically, it works on a few levels, I would say, on how I see We Are Legion being in the industry. One of the big things is obviously making it so that lots of creators who, wouldn't probably get a place at another imprint like ours, no shit for like Valiant or Catalyst Prime or anything, or H1, the humanoids imprint. No, all the love for them, but all of the people they work with are pretty well established creators.
Sure.
It's a lot of people who are, cut in the industry, I guess.
So this is a place. This is a place where creators can come in, cut their teeth. Not to say that you're not vetting any of them. I imagine, right? I mean, there are people you have to like turn away, right? Because they don't.
Yeah, the only people who we've like really been like, okay, no, you're not in here, are people who I think if I start publishing anything by them, they would just get laughed at or anything like that. And it's like, I don't want you to get embarrassed,
Sure.
or be made like a joke. So, come back whenever you've like worked on your craft a bit more. And that sucks to have someone tell you that, but it's like, I think it would be much worse if we actually went through with someone like that and were like trying to act like they were, someone who isn't just gonna be made fun of. And it's like, you gotta protect people a little bit when you're building out a platform like this.
Yeah. I mean, but in turn too, I mean, it's also protecting your brand as well, right? So, I mean, if these people are getting laughed at, you kind of look at it as any other comic book. If one type of publisher consistently puts out this quality of work, I'm not laughing at, this artist and this artist and this writer. I'm laughing at the publisher. Like, they're stuck,
eventually
right?
it just becomes we're like a clown car, and we don't really want to be that, obviously.
Right.
Because then that drags down our other creators.
That's right.
It drags everyone down, and then eventually no one's buying our stuff. And I mean, obviously no one's buying our stuff to be in, like right now. Because
right, but as far as goals go, like what you guys are shooting for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when it comes to something like that, it's like, okay, obviously with someone like that, we're cool with working with them at a certain point.
Yeah.
Once they've, got their foot in the door and they're putting out stuff that's like, of, I guess, aftershock level quality, that kind of stuff. That's generally what we're kind of shooting for.
Nice.
But when it comes to other people who are not really allowing in, Nazis. No, please. I've already had people who I've had come into the studio, and I didn't like vet them well enough.
Yeah.
And then I go and look at their webcomic, and I see Nazi propaganda where it's like blood and soil and shit.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, goodbye.
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last there was a guy on our first Kick Boost was a Patrick Buermeyer. He's doing a Kickstarter, and I actually found him like kind of the same way, where he was supposed to go on a podcast and kind of promote his stuff, and then he found out that the podcast podcasters, called themselves, Pro Comics Gate and all that, and then he had to back out. So sometimes you kind of walk into it. But that's pretty cool that you have people out there who's willing to like kind of hold that ground. Moving on a bit. So We Are Legion. So I know you said that creator owned. I know we have these imprints, but when we look at like how can we expect a universe kind of like Marvel, DC, Valiant, this interconnected deal, or are you guys looking more like the Image Comics model of creator-owned stories and worlds?
So it's a mix, I would say. With We Are Legion, that is only a shared universe to start with. Our other imprints like Jettison Zone, Comical Comedy, Giazega, they all can either be like their own imprints where they have their own universes, or they can be a completely non-universe line. Or it can be a mix, You could have an Odyssey universe type thing.
Yeah.
But with We Are Legion, we're kind of sticking to, to start with, we don't want to do any like Elseworlds type stories or anything.
Sure.
We have to establish the characters to begin with before people are cool with like us going into non-canon type stories.
Right.
Who would even be interested in a steampunk Gotham by Gaslight style Shadowcat story?
That's right. That's right.
You don't have a frame of reference to just be like, okay, this is what a steampunk version of this character would be, Not to say we're not interested in that eventually, but, baby steps.
Yeah.
Can't just jump right into that.
That makes sense.
So, yeah. And even when we do have the shared universe stuff, all of the characters are still creator-owned. If someone comes to us with a character, and then we publish a few books with them, and then they're like, hey, I'd like to split off, we do have ways of getting that stuff out of our universe so that they can do whatever they want, wherever they want to.
That makes sense. Then you just got to kill them off in the in-universe if they take them away or something.
Yeah, your character's dead now.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Here's your character back.
Now, we'll do something where it's kind of like, maybe warping them out of there or something.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You cross that bridge when you get to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do have our ears to the ground when it comes to other small studios like Scout and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure that we're keeping abreast of everything that's going on in the industry. And when it comes to all of that, making sure that we're having a good model for things.
Awesome.
For our creators, and making sure that we're not doing a certain thing where we're like a studio that publishes big Fox property comics, licensed by big studios. We're not doing the whole thing where we're paying our colorists like nothing.
Right.
And I don't want to name names or anything about like that publisher in particular, but they do need to go away out of the industry if they're cheating colorists out of their money, Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. Go out of the. I like that.
Yeah.
So We Are Legion. You mentioned them earlier. You said you have a flagship character. So my question here was going to ask you, like, who's up to bat? Who's your first project that we can expect on Kickstarter or something? Is it going to be that character? Can you tell us a little bit about your first big project?
Right. So we're doing a few anthology stories. So we're going to have our anthology first out, and that's going to be Unstitched Visions.
Okay.
It's more kind of like a 2080 situation than one of those, Kickstarter anthologies where it's a one and done situation.
Sure.
So we're going to be doing probably a seasonal distribution of it, where it's like for a year to start with.
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to have a pick and mix of characters, and it's also going to have a few of our stories that we're syndicating.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have like a story where it's like a Shadowcat #1. It's like we'll take a few pages from that, and it's like, okay, cool. So that people can either buy Unstitched Visions, and just like only buy that, and then they can be like, okay, I'm getting like all of the stories pretty much
Yeah.
for cheaper. Or it can be like, okay, I'm gonna buy like, I'm only interested in ... you know? I'm only interested in, say, like Lady Cordone and Golem Leviathan.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, making sure that people have like a good amount of choices they can take.
Awesome.
Nice.
Or they can just, you know, pick and do like maybe Shadowcat and Unstitched Visions or something like that.
Yeah.
I try and make sure that when people are coming to us, either if they're a creator or a fan or anything like that, that we're treating everyone fairly.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's my goal.
Cool.
That's amazing. Now, I've got a sideline question for you because it seems that you're very passionate about the comics industry, and I want to know, what's the first comic you ever read? What started this obsession? What launched you into this?
Right. So my first comic was it was the David Finch, Mark Benson run of Moon Knight.
Ooh.
Nice. Nice.
And then it was all downhill from there?
I mean, the comic is literally called The Bottom.
Yeah. I love it.
Honestly, I think that in my time of reading since, it was about freshman year of high school. That's when I really got into it. And ever since, it's been like, there's so many good comics coming out right now. Like, obviously, it's a saturation issue where it's like, there's so much stuff coming out. It's kind of like analysis paralysis, but in terms of like, what am I gonna like read?
That's right.
You can go and read, These Savage Shores. It's an amazing gothic fantasy comic. But you can also go and read Elfin Warrior on Line Webtoon, and that's like a fantasy comedy comic. Yeah. It's like cool. There's something for everyone out there, but it's just trying to figure out what it is.
Yep.
And trying to get, your name out there if you're a creator.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, like, the creators that we've interviewed so far were asking advice, and we'll probably have questions similar for you down the track. Like, how do you break into the comic book industry? How do you make a start for yourself? So many of them have been self-published to begin with, because, you now have the internet and stuff. Like, if anyone wants to create anything, now's the time. Like, just don't make a comic discussion podcast because there's already...
So Heather Antos is a senior editor, and this is like one of her starts right here. This is an anthology that I picked up. She's a senior editor at Valiant, and hers is a self-published anthology. So that's pretty dope.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yep. Pretty
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
So, Matthew, I have to ask: do you have a favorite and/or a least favorite comic book character?
So if I was gonna say like any character was my favorite, it would probably be, a very easy answer of one of mine.
There it is, yeah.
out of anyone else, it would, also easy answer would be Moon Knight, because
Moon Knight is
always
awesome.
been in.
That's really cool.
So what's your opinion? Does Moon Knight actually have powers, or is this a story that's happening in his head?
It depends on the storyline,
Right.
That's what I love about Moon Knight, is just how varied he can be. Sometimes it's not very good. Sometimes it's just, #1 writer in comics just being like, I don't really like writing this character, so let me make him into 3 other characters.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Which
And then
I didn't feel that was a bad story either. But I know what you're
It's a
saying.
bad story, but it's like one of those things where it's like, as a fan of it and someone who kind of got hugely into it, it's like this story is kind of like, I don't know, it doesn't really feel like wanting to write a Moon Knight story.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, I think I could have this guy just being called a lunatic. Haha, get it, Luna.
Right. What about
It's
least
like-
favorite? What about least favorite?
If I was gonna go with least favorite,
Not one of yours, clearly.
oh, I have characters of mine who I deeply despise
Really?
on every level. But that's because I designed them to be terrible.
Yeah, nice, very nice. All right.
But in terms of like, you know, from other studios,
Mhm.
that's always a tough question because I have so much hate in my body. I would have to go with Monarcha from
What's that?
Monarcha versus Social Justice Warrior because that is the worst comic I've ever read, I think.
Who writes that? What is that from?
It's a comic online webtoon,
Oh, okay.
and
Okay.
it's basically just this dude whining about social justice warriors,
That
and
is,
it's like-
yeah.
and it's just like a whole bunch of straw men about like body positivity and shit,
Yep.
and sex positivity and all that.
So
And
yeah, that's
it's
that's a
hard.
book worth hate. That's good. That's a good
Yeah.
book to hate.
Yep. That's a
And-
good answer.
Yeah, kind of left field, but I have to show that I'm the only one who actually read that comic.
They have one downvote. It's you. It's
Yeah, I made sure to just go like, as soon as I saw the name of it, I was like, oh, this is gonna be a 1-star comic
yeah.
online webtoon.
I can feel it.
All right. So comic book series creators that you recommend, clearly your own. And that's what we're. So how about this? How about you? If people want to get into your work and you get stuff out there, like who's the most exciting character that you think is going to come out of your shop?
Oh, so I think personally, I would love it to be Shadowcat because I'm so invested into him personally,
Mm-hmm.
and I've put so much time and effort into like making him take off. But I really think this character who I created, honestly, not even 6 months ago, I don't think.
Yeah.
She's starting to take off in a big way. Lady Cordone.
Okay.
She's one of those characters where it's like such an immediate like high concept of, oh yeah, she's a superhero fashionista, and every time she's going out as a superhero, she has a new costume.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of
because
work
she's
for
trying
the
to-
writer and the artist.
Yeah,
Cool.
and I was like, when I first created her, I was like, oh, she's gonna go on the back burner. It'll take a while for us to find someone to do her, and do her right.
Right.
Because you don't want like an artist doing that character and just tossing out a bunch of costumes that don't really look that great
Mhm.
because it defeats the point of her being like a high fashion type
That's
character.
right.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to have somebody. And it's funny, like when you're looking at characters and you know, especially if we get a little bit deeper, right? We can get a little SJW with it and go, well, it's nice to, if you're gonna write a black character, to know how you know, black culture and things like that. But I would have never really think on that level for fashionista. Yeah. So if I'm like writing a fashionista or doing design for it, I'm like, I think I need to go talk to somebody who knows fashion.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm not gonna find anyone who does that for a while. You know, I'm gonna have to start doing my own research into like fashion and stuff, into finding people who are into that
Sure.
sort of thing. And then I found 2 people right away.
Wow.
Amazing.
And it was like, I found Danny Riv, who's done like 20 pieces of design for Lady Cordone so far.
Oh, awesome.
And I found Lucianus Camacho, who was just like, oh, I love doing like the fashion type stuff
So cool.
in terms of designs. So
It's a shame that Judah missed out on this interview today because he's the most fashionable out of the 3 of us. So we could have made a connection.
Yeah, he is.
So Matthew, is there anything else? Because we're all quarantined, we're all isolated, we're all losing our minds. Is there anything you're nerding out on that you can recommend to our viewers? Are you reading anything good? Are you watching anything good? Listening to anything good?
yeah, so I've mostly been doing stuff in terms of like, because I've make sure that I don't have all my eggs in one basket, you know.
Sure.
And trying to, promote myself, and also, hey, I could use this and turn it into something good for MW. Right now, when I'm having free time to do something else, it's usually like video games. And I found a bunch of really good ones where it's like, because I don't really pay attention to like the big ones.
The AAA games, yeah.
Yeah, I don't play any like Call of Duties or anything like that. But I am into stuff like Blazing Beaks. That's really good.
I've heard of it. Sounds fun.
It's a fantastic game. You run around as a platypus and you like shoot these little animals that pop out eggs, and then the egg explodes.
Amazing.
All right. I'm over here playing Ghost of Tsushima, and I'm like, platypus that shoots guys that lay eggs. I think I'm gonna have to check that out.
Cool.
It's really fun too. Me and one of my roommates were playing it like a few days ago, and we were just like, we kept dying, but it was fun.
Nice.
Okay, cool.
You know,
Nice.
it's one of those games where it's like, you die, but it's hilarious. So
Right.
Yep.
you're cool with it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I've got
Oh,
one
yeah?
last question for you. Sorry, Matthew. Before, so I wanted to know if, before we were talking about advice, and if you give any advice to people trying to break into the industry, you seem to have this unique like path that you forged for yourself, because you seem very young, and I'm not saying that as an insult.
Oh, that's impressive.
But like you've come so far in such a short amount of time. What advice would you give to people that want to do what you're doing?
So I think in terms of getting into the industry, obviously, when it comes to this sort of thing, there's no magic silver bullet, and I don't think I've personally, made it completely yet. But
anyone
if
ever?
if I was I mean, honestly, you can be in like Marvel and DC and still not made it. The industry's just like that now.
Yeah.
But in terms of, I mean, obviously you've got like Iron Spike and all that stuff where they can, get in there and actually start making like real big stuff. But in terms of giving people advice, I would say do what you want to do as a creator. Obviously, make sure that what you're creating is actually going to appeal to the audience you're doing. Like, hey, if you're gonna be doing like a comic where it's like it's got a character from a background you aren't of, like, make sure that you're not fucking things up. Like, you gotta respect the house you're in when you're in. You don't just go and be like, oh, I want to do like all these comics about blah blah blah, and you don't really know what you're talking about. But other than that, just do whatever interests you. Make sure that you're setting yourself apart in terms of like at some level. You don't really want to just do a complete rip-off or anything. And also, for the love of God, do not like set yourself up with like Comicsgate or anything like that, because that's a dead end.
Nice.
Like, I've known people who I've spoken to, and then I see them go on to Comicsgate, and it's like, I mean, I kind of expected that because you did have me a little sketch on you.
That's right.
So it's good to have that confirmation at least.
I was right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I'll look on someone's Instagram and be like, this person seems like a comic skater. Did they just follow me to like boost up their their numbers? And then like a month later, I'll see, oh, Ethan Van Sciver is pushing this person.
Yeah.
Jeez,
Yeah.
Well, Matthew Werner, MW Entertainment, at the helm of We Are Legion, superhero imprint. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, pretty awesome. Pretty awesome what you have here. All the links that you have, we'll put a link to his blog. He also found us on Discord. So outside of our Discord, we'll put the MW Discord on there too. If you want to check out and stay on top of what they're doing over there. That's it. Thank you for coming on, brother.
Yeah,
All right,
thanks,
thanks.
Matthew.
Have a nice one, everyone.
You too.
Subscribe, ring the bell, and be free. Follow our links and watch our show because you want to and not because of the threats. Thank you for watching Judah, Robo, and Ree. We talk about comics, movies, and TV. Sometimes we have notable guests, and sometimes it's just us. But we're all so cool.